Okay, Matthew. One of the things that Bart Ehrman talks about is redaction criticism. I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about this today, but you should know a little bit about it. What does redact mean?
Edit.
Yeah, it just means edit. A redactor would then be a what? Yeah. To redact means to edit. A redactor is an editor. Redaction criticism is just the practice of analyzing how someone has edited something else. Right? Redaction criticism is important when studying the synoptics. Do you remember when we read the story about who baptized Jesus? This is one thing in Mark, and it says something else in Matthew, and it says a third thing in Luke. When we did that, we were doing redaction criticism. We were looking, why would the author of Matthew edit the story this way? Why would the author of Luke edit the story that way? What is that redactor? What is that editor up to? What might his motivations have been that would lead him to edit it that way? When we were doing that, we were doing redaction criticism. Just analysis of, let's compare this text with the edited version and see how the edited version is different. Why might someone take out, add, change, etc.? In the Gospel of Matthew, Jesus is the Messiah, or what's the Greek word? Christ. Again, just like in the Gospel of Mark. You guys remember Jesus being called the Son of David in Mark? He wasn't really called the Son of David in Mark. What's that? He was called the Son of God and the Son of Man, but it might be in there somewhere, but it's not a key feature of the Gospel of Mark. What are the implications of being called a son of David? Why would someone call themselves, or why would somebody else call a person a son of David? What are the implications embedded in that idea?
He was like the king. David was their greatest king.
Yeah, David is the greatest king in the history of Israel.
I was going to say he's like almost king of the Jewish people.
Yeah. What it does is it implies royalty. In a democracy, how do you determine who's going to be the next president?
Election.
You vote. It's an election. If you have a kingship, how do you determine who's the next president? Or sorry, who's the next king? What's that? Yeah. It's the oldest son of the king. It's whoever's the oldest man in this lineage gets to be the king, right? Well, if Jesus is going to be a Messiah, presumably he would be in David's lineage. And when they say son of David, they don't mean literally like because David lived generations before, but they mean that he's in the line of David, which makes him eligible for kingship. Now, what kind of king was Jesus in the Gospel of Mark? Jim, is that a hand? No. What kind of Messiah was Jesus in the Gospel of Mark? Did he establish a throne and rule forever? Yeah, I called him a reverse Messiah, right? Because he tells his disciples, actually, it's going to be the opposite of what you think. We're not going to be at the top. We're going to be at the bottom. And we're going to serve other people, right? A king is at the top of society, is served by other people in the society. Jesus and Mark is like this reverse Messiah. We're going to be at the bottom and we're going to serve other people. That idea is in part implicitly contained in Matthew. It's no surprise because he copied over Mark. But Jesus, as Messiah in Matthew, is not going to be a Davidic Messiah in the sense of he's not going to establish a kingship and rule the country. He's going to be a servant for others. But, nevertheless, even though he's not going to be a Messiah like David was a Messiah, he still deserves to be Messiah because he's got royalty in his blood. Right? That's why somebody would call someone a son of David, because it implies they deserve to be king. Now, this is established in part with the genealogy. So, Matthew doesn't just he doesn't just metaphorically say that Jesus is the son of David. He establishes it with a genealogy. Jesus' royalty is established with a genealogy. Now, Ehrman talks about the fact that the genealogy is broken up into segments of 14. What's he going on about there? What's that about? Yeah.
Like every 14 years, there's like it was Moses, and then David.
Well, who's first? Now,
Abraham?
yeah, Abraham. Now, who's first in Luke? Well, he starts with Jesus, but goes all the way back to Adam, right? Adam and Eve, right? Because Matthew isn't concerned with Luke, what Luke is concerned with. He's got different concerns. He starts with Abraham. So you've got Abe, who is the father, so to speak, of the Israelite nation. And then 14 generations ahead is where? Yeah, Moses. Why would Moses be a high point in the history of the Israelite nation?
He rescued them.
What's that?
He rescued the Jewish people.
Yeah, one of the things he did was that they were enslaved by the Egyptians, and he helped rescue them and led them out of Egypt.
Wasn't he like the translator for the Torah?
Well, not the translator, but he was given the law by God. So Moses goes up on Mount Sinai, and God hands him the tablet with the 10 Commandments on it. Not just the 10 Commandments, but there's other stuff. And now he's got it. He gets the law. That's the law that the Israelites are going to abide by. And there are 14 generations from the starting point to this high point. But then it moves down to a low point. What's the next low point? 14 generations later.
David?
Oh, shoot. Now you guys have got me all confused. I forget. What page is it on? Can you guys find the page? Aha. It's on page 79. Oh, you know what? Moses is not in there. I'm sorry, that's my bad. That's why I'm confused. You can forget everything we just said about Moses. Moses is still a high point, but the real high point, is David. And that's simply because he is seen as the best king.